Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story, and this, ladies and gentle crabs, is the long-awaited sequel in the promised Craig trilogy. If you haven't seen the first Craig story, I'll link it in the description, though you don't exactly have to watch it to fully understand or appreciate this tale of D&D woe. Anyways, allow me to tell you the tale of Craig's return, because he didn't stop at throwing a fit about his forsaken waifu, to the party's disappointment and to our entertainment. Roll post. This campaign was started sometime during my own Anima campaign. The group consisted of the illustrious Craig, Jacob, Jake, and myself. When he pitched the idea, I had never even heard of the system. Exalted 2nd edition by White Wolf. He made it sound like this over-the-top Greek-Chinese mythology madness cocktail of awesome and laser raptors. How could any decent person say no to that? Thing is, he was very stingy about player immersion and set up one significant rule. The players were not allowed to read the rulebooks. Only choice parts were open for reading, such as basic character creation and some snippets of the game systems. That's nice, we players thought, and we proceeded to create our characters. We essentially thought that this was some design choice to get us started on some high immersion campaign where meta-knowledge would ruin anything. Let's just say that some meta-knowledge would call out the campaign for the BS it became. Anyways, we rolled our characters. Strict orders were placed on us not to have any attribute or skill over 3, where 5 is the usual maximum. And we were allowed next to no supernatural powers. For those who know the setting and system, we started as unheroic, heroic mortals that had yet to exalt. Jake rolled a savage huntress from the southeastern creation, which is an area of incredibly dense forests coupled with badlands and all of that. Her tribe had been brutally wiped out by a dark overlord named Mask of Winters. A name that meant nothing to Jake as it was suggested by Craig. Her name was Taya, and she was a competent archer, survivalist, and tracker, but had incredibly bad social skills. Jacob, while having a brain aneurysm, decided to roll an ancient old blind hag with an owl familiar that acted as her eyes. We all thought that the character was incredibly bad, and Jacob later admitted to temporarily succumbing to insanity while creating her. He later changed character, and we'll get to that. My own character became the scum of the earth Zeal. He was a complete fiend and probably the worst person to invite to a house party. His backstory was that he belonged to the middle nobility, and that his family secretly worshipped some demonic entity. Being the youngest child, he had trouble proving his worth to his extensive collection of older brothers and sisters, whom were all objectively better than him. What he lacked in sense, he made up with sheer lunacy, as he made some fell pact with the murder demon in the family basement and killed all of his closest family members and staff in their estate. What a champ. I had noticed a background, which is a category of bonuses at character creation called Familiar. I had no idea where to spend the backstory points, so I spent the maximum possible 5 dots on it. Said Familiar was a servant to the murder demon, a sleek panther that would turn into an equally dangerous woman. Zeal was a real edgelord if I'm allowed to use the local nomenclature, but the idea was that he would become a decent person and overcome his psychological problems. Craig was informed of my plans and gave me the thumbs up. The campaign started by our characters waking up in a secluded camp in the middle of nowhere. There were cannibals everywhere, and we 3 seemed to be the only recent catches. We managed to escape our bonds and start to formulate a plan to escape. Taya and Zeal agreed that killing the ever-living Jesus out of the cannibals was the prudent thing to do. Taya was dishonored by her tribe's standards and needed to redeem herself. Zeal just wanted to murder everyone forever. Anyways, battle ensued. It quickly became clear that Craig had absolutely no idea how to run the combat system. He spent the better part of an hour doing research straight out of the rulebook. First time playing, so it was quite understandable, but as a tip to all of you new GMs, don't plan a combat encounter unless you have at least a vague idea about the rules. We players had no clue as our access to the rulebooks was limited by law. After an incredibly awkward combat, we ran off into the desert. I will not go into much detail about what happened as much of it is lost in the mists of memory. I will, however, go through the more amusing and alarming details of the campaign in a looser narrative. I hope that's fine with you guys. A mere sessions in, we met with a runaway princess from some crumbling kingdom. It quickly became clear that she was the MacGuffin of the campaign, as Craig described her in incredible detail. She was a stoic but easily flustered armored princess that was clearly superior to all the player characters in every way. Her combat ability was way higher than ours. As you remember, we were allowed a maximum of 3 in our attributes and skills instead of the usual 5. Kara, as her name was, sort of just ordered us to help her on her incredibly vague quest. We had no idea what was going on, so some form of direction was appreciated. So we went to follow the MacGuffin like some trailhands, not be the heroic heroes of Dawn that we were promised to be. Speaking of Heroes of the Dawn, one of the main ideas of the early parts of the campaign was that we should all exalt. Now, normally, mortals become exalts in specific circumstances. For instance, a scholar might become a Twilight Caste when she realizes some fundamental truth about the world. A soldier might become a Dawn Caste when facing impossible odds on the battlefield, and so forth. It is basically an incredible power boost that permanently makes the character larger than life and awesome in every conceivable way. Craig had a wholly different interpretation of the act of exaltation. He did it by bits and crumbs. All our characters, oh, and by the way, Jacob changed character to a well-spoken sorcerer's apprentice after his crazy old lady sort of just wandered off in the desert. The new guy's name was Geist, and he knew terrestrial sorcery at character creation, while being mortal. Yeah, that was totally fair. Anyways, back to the exaltations. One by one, we started noticing subtle differences in ourselves, doing things slightly better or doing spontaneous miraculous feats. We, at least what I know of, had these visions of old wise masters standing on water and all that. Instead of getting all that kaboom boom at once, as dictated by the rules that were, we were drip-fed one agonizing charm at a time. For those of you who don't know, a charm is essentially a magical power that allows you to do increasingly crazy things. From jumping several dozen feet straight into the air to cutting down swaths of enemies with the speed of sunlight. Craig did the drip feeding mostly between sessions. We would have these mini sessions where we were rewarded by a charm. Of his choosing, of course. We never really got any player agency when it came to character progression. Zeal mainly got athletics charms that allowed him to become exceptionally mobile, but he got no means of proper defense or attack. I think he never once during the campaign was at full health due to being a melee fighter without the ability to defend himself. Instead, he was just jumping around like a total spazzhole. Taya got next to nothing, while Geist got sorcery. Yeah, that is totally how it works. It just became even better when a new player, Mike, joined. He had played Exalted before and got to roll a full solar. Gasp. Mike was a bit confused by the way things were handled by Craig and told him, dude, that is totally not how exaltations work. Craig just told him to shut up and let him run his game the way he wanted. I am convinced that homebrewing and modification of standard settings and systems is totally fine as long as you inform your players. Craig, however, had created a perfect solution. He had prohibited us from learning the truth and unable to realize his BS. The big problem with the method of drip feeding was that Craig was playing favorites. Jake, whom Craig had some sort of issue with, got next to nothing. Jacob, on the other hand, was super busy most evenings, so he had no time to do these mini sessions for those sweet, sweet charms. Myself, on the other hand, was basically courted with invites from Craig. Zeal had all of these sorts of adventures by himself and got to learn various plot-related information. Pro tip. Don't do that. Player information should be shared, at least if it's related to the main plot. As such, Zeal got significantly more useful and powerful than his peers. Jacob, Jake, and I laughed heartily after the campaign came to its abrupt end that Taya had like one charm which allowed her to shoot arrows at large distances. The problem was that she could not shoot for crap to begin with, as all the enemies were scaled to match Geist's sorcery, Kara's epic swordsmanship, and Zeal's idiot jumping. Speaking of Kara, she was some form of homebrew prototype solar that had her exaltation tattooed onto her body. Pretty sure that's from another anime Craig had watched. You guys tell me if you know. She was leagues above us when it came to being useful, and she solved entire situations by herself, and of course, she was never wrong. We had, as you might remember, no idea of what was going on in creation, and everything Kara said turned out to be true and correct. Nice going, Craig. I had almost forgotten Zeal's murder demon familiar. The panther was named Raga, and she turned out to be the most underpriced familiar ever made. If it wasn't enough with the overpowered Kara, Raga was a total combat powerhouse and became an increasingly important character to the plot. Something, lost demon queen, something. She also made numerous advances on Zeal, to no one's surprise. Kara did too. They obviously could not resist his sociopathic charm. Raga even ended a boss battle by herself at one point. We were after this serial killer that made portraits out of the blood of his victims. He was said to be this total demon-possessed mastermind. Guess what happened? Round 1. Raga won initiative. Every player said, but she's not even here. But Craig said, just wait. Then, Raga materialized behind the painter and shredded him into strips of flesh and tasty blood mist in one attack. Really climatic. Especially bad considering Mike, whom played the party's face, wanted to talk with the painter about what had made him so powerful. Perhaps he had some fell master that was the real threat. Nope, that would not do, Craig thought. Over time, a major problem started to become evident. Zeal had slowly become the main character of the campaign. Craig gave him exclusive essential information, which I thought was completely nuts. He also placed these awkwardly sexualized women at his feet. Craig even threw in, I swear to God, an underage girl at Zeal and had me roll temperance, which governs self-control, to not have his way with her. Nope. That's it. I'm done. The channel's over. Craig wins. Craig wins the channel. Craig, you win. I'm closing up shop. I hope you guys enjoyed CritCrab, but this is over now. I'm never going to be able to top this. This is just the worst. What the hell? Why are they still playing with him at that point? Thankfully, I passed that check. Great, I thought. He is making a harem that no one asked for. That's just dandy. It went as far as Craig saying to me in private that Zeal was more important than the other player characters. I was quite distressed by this and asked him to distribute the spotlight more fairly, but my pleas fell upon deaf ears. The campaign itself was incredibly unfocused, completely lacking in an overarching plot in favor of Craig's whim of the week. Weird things just happened one by one, some of them amusing, others less so. For example, we visited Geist's master, whom was a deranged magician that had sent him into the world in search for panties? Zeal had to roll temperance to not hug the underage girl to death, which failed, turning her into a side reel exalted for some inexplicable reason. Zeal was forced into copulating with the water nymph, which almost instantly produced a fully aged son that Zeal couldn't handle. Oh my gosh, I'm like actually really uncomfortable reading this. This is just the worst. I don't understand. I get that Craig is your friend, but at that point, especially after what happened before, why are these people not leaving? No one is forcing them to be here. Why are they doing this? It was a right mess without any direction to speak of. Eventually, Jake started to lose interest by the unfair treatment. He made minimum effort during sessions, and I don't blame him. His actions were mostly ignored, and he was never really encouraged or rewarded for doing things. Jacob, being a sweet angel of kindness, tried having fun and to ignore the obvious favoritism. I mostly felt incredibly guilty for having become the de facto main character of the story, but tried to shift the focus as best I could. Nope, that would not do, said Craig and shifted it right back. The campaign ended in the most undignified way possible. It was put on permanent ice after Craig found a new TTRPG system to obsess over. His interest in Exalted had passed, and he said he had lost inspiration. After the campaign was over, I was told that his plan for the endgame, he used that term, yes, was that Raga would return in her demon queen form with the Sword of Creation, which is a powerful global defense system, not a physical sword, and would kill all the gods with it. He said that it was up to Zeal, not the party, to redeem her or just some BS like that. Yikes. Now, the moral of the story is, don't pick favorites amongst your players. Don't take away the agency of character progression from the players. Don't follow your whims when it comes to campaign design. Don't keep players in the dark when it comes to settings, and for the love of God, don't force players to have to roll something to avoid doing underage girls. TLDR, ST obfuscates facts, has a field day on everything that is holy with the setting and system, removes player agency and plays favorites, realizes that people don't like that sort of thing, and abruptly cancels the whole campaign. End post. At last. Finally, my suffering is over. On every post I make, people are asking why OP doesn't just leave the table. And every time I justify it in my mind by thinking that if one of my friends was that guy, I would instead try and make him better or, make a learning experience out of it or something. But after this post in specific, I just can't say that I would anymore. This has been the single worst story I think I have ever covered. And the thought that there's another story about him makes me even more uncomfortable. I honestly don't believe we could be worse DMs if we tried. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and want to see the thrilling finale to the Craig trilogy, please do leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.